Thank you very much, Dr. Balyan, Dr. Garg, Ragni ji, my old colleague and friend, Ghanshyam ji, Negi Saab, and other distinguished colleagues and friends present here today. Today's program itself represents the dynamic nature of world politics, the energy scenario, and what I would say generally in terms of governance and in terms of being able to supply the energy needs of a country is well reflected in what is happening. One thing is certain, and that is uncertainty, and how much you can protect yourself against it or insulate yourself, you can't if you're living in a global environment. But you have to be dynamic and be prepared to face the kinds of challenges that are coming. Since the time I joined working in the energy sector and till today, which I think is now almost 40 years of my life, I can say that one thing that is certain is uncertainty. And the more efficiently you can prepare yourself for that uncertainty, for the unknown, is the competence of any country, its political leadership, and more so, its core permanent leadership, which comprises technocrats from various disciplines of essential commodities which are necessary for life today. And when we are meeting today, really speaking in the ages of a energy meet, without energy, neither any living being can move, nor can any civilization proceed. Now, how dynamic that need is, how great the need is, as measured per unit of output, as well as the availability of that energy when you need it, that is the most critical factor. I may have wealth stored away in some asset which is frozen. It is meaningless unless I'm able to utilize it when I need it. And that is the kind of dilemma which a very distinguished technologist of the country who's sitting here today, Ghanshyam ji, he is constantly battling with that. The electricity sector, he is the highest technical authority in that sector and a designated secretary to the Government of India. Now, when we've been talking over the last, I would say, 3 decades almost of energy transition. Now, what is this transition? We've been talking about environmental risks to the civilization, so that the civilization in its various forms, whether in form of human life, animal life, vegetation, food and other commodities, doesn't go out of sync. And this whole process of keeping life moving, economy moving, as well as providing a safe environment to live in, is safe. It's a dynamic situation, but coming back to the point, we've been told of Atmanirbharta at times. Well, no country can be completely independent for its energy requirements ever, I feel. At least for living in a competitive world. But how well you can protect yourself, insulate yourself from large risks, and not be like a patient in an ICU that very minor fluctuations in supply or even moderate ones can disrupt the whole pattern of life and civilization or the economy in a society. The last few weeks have indicated one thing, and that is international energy trade can be disrupted at very short notice. We have all witnessed our great dependence on imported fuels. They are the very essence of an economy today. Petroleum fuels may be in liquid or gaseous form, and at the same time, their vulnerability has been very strongly exposed. You're aware of the kind of disruption that one narrow passage connecting two water bodies of the world has created. And that too, essentially, in my limited understanding, a war for greater energy resource and its ownership, coming to think of it. Now, the world's largest populated country, India, which is in a stage of growth, needs energy for daily life, for industrialization, as well as for manufacture. Transportation, being a major link in today's development, is almost entirely dependent on energy sources. The debate that is going on is, do we shift from liquid fuels or gaseous fuels to electricity? Is that more reliable? And I would say more neutral. It can be produced from various sources, maybe coal, wind, sun, gas, or other products, so that its dynamic nature and adjustment can be a better anchor for survival than depending on only one or two fuels, particularly for locomotion, that is transport. Now that is a rethink or a dilemma. That is an added dimension after the last 2 or 3 decades of constantly trying to adjust ourselves to climatic catastrophes. This supply catastrophe is something which has added a new degree of uncertainty and risk in the whole pattern of life. Now, the way Dr. Garg has structured this conference, it's entirely his baby. Shows that kind of depth and understanding of future scenarios. when we talk of sustainability, petroleum, coal on one side, that's how this organization began, and realizing the inevitability of future fuels like hydrogen, biogas, and other fuels. It is a belief that anything that can produce energy for movement, electrification, or for performing work needs to be harnessed. And it would be extremely unwise to put all your eggs in one or two baskets. You have to have a multiple portfolio which can compensate for disruptions in supply or in extreme price fluctuations in times to come. That, I think, is a challenge which this kind of an assembly is wanting to put forth. Nuclear power has been an issue which is sometimes projected as the savior of the energy sector, and when it doesn't suit the powers that be, which control thought and opinion, they decide to say, no, it's not good, it's dangerous, but yes, it should be owned by only a select few. Now that is the hypocrisy of global governance and management, and we have to live in that situation. At the bottom of it is that those who are versatile, those who have power, will not only write the rules, but will also manipulate them and navigate their way around life. Now, if one lesson that comes through this crisis in this meeting is that do not ignore resources that are easily and perpetually available to you. Harness them, work towards technology which can make them more practical, more fungible, reduce them to a form. The analogy that I can think of is currency. You need currency to trade. You may have other precious commodities which all add to wealth. But when you need to interact, trade, to work in various spheres, to transact, you need a mode of existence, or the language of trade is currency. And the language of work, in my view, is energy. From whichever source is available to you at that point of time, and the least harmful to the environment, the better. But there are no taboos, and everything is not kosher. So all in all, harness any form of energy which makes life and the economy sustainable. We had got on to LPG cylinders in this country, pushing them around. When I was a schoolboy, the first cylinders appeared. They have, when I'm an old man, they've reached every village, they become a way of life. But now we realize that we cannot make those cylinders dependent on a whims and fancies of a few people who decide to create noise in the neighborhood. We need combustible gas in any form. Now that is where the importance of various forms of biogas, not only from animal material, but also from vegetable waste, any form that putrefies can produce those very gases which are combustible, those very substances which can give us energy. So to be dynamic, to be sensible, to be local wherever resources are there, and not take upon everything in a centralized fashion as a promise which we may not be able to deliver in the future. But yes, the most neutral form of energy and convenient form of energy which can help us perform our daily chores, climate control, transportation, is, I think, at the end of the day, electricity. And that system will continue, I think, to be a dominant feature of the energy scenario. But we must also understand the disciplines and the imperatives that go with it. When you're dealing with that substance called electricity or electrons, you cannot play around with the established rules of safe transmission. You cannot play around with what ought to be the precautions taken by those who are handling it. Safety. Those who work in that sector, those who use that sector. So there are rules to every game. But we as a population of various countries, not only India, but of the world, we have to realize the hard facts of life, geopolitics, affordability in a country, and like an adult member of any household, act sensibly, get together in times of crisis, and share the burden to the extent you can. Again, a few industrial houses which control the energy sectors, which are manned by very competent professionals whom we'll have chance to hear. But at the same time, each one of us has a role to play, realizing the geopolitical situation, the affordability of certain commodities, and the need to economize wherever we can and whenever we can, and be prepared for the rainy day. In the 365 days in a year, there are at least 30 or 40 days in any climatic part of the world where you have to take shelter and protect yourself and act sensibly. And that should not be a cause of panic, but I think the present crisis, just as they say, a crisis makes a young boy mature into a man or a young girl into a woman. And let this crisis make us a mature thinking civilization. I will not say for a particular country, but I would say for different parts of the world who have different needs, different resources. Be dynamic, be patient, but be sensible, and invest not only in today, but a safe future. Thank you very much.